Now joining us is Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick. She's running in Florida's 20th district against Alcee Hastings. Well, he is a very, very long time congressman from that district. So let's talk to Sheila. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this show. It's wonderful.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. So let's start with the incumbent first. So why run against Alcee Hastings?
Well, you know, he's been a congressman here in my district for over 25 years, and we've been plagued with, we're stagnant. But as I started digging in deeper, I started seeing all the payments that he's receiving from payday lenders, Big Sugar, the issues that we're suffering in our communities. They have a direct trail to his contributions and his voting records. So I could no longer stay quiet and sit here and act like, oh, nothing's going on, when we actually can see the problem and pinpoint it, which is realistically how much money he's actually receiving and how he's voting.
So as we do these interviews throughout the country, there's so many interesting parts, including the regional players. So now that we started doing Florida interviews, because the primaries are coming up, all I hear about is Big Sugar, which you don't hear much in the rest of the country. But to me, actually, the more important thing is whether it's Big Sugar or defense contractors or payday lenders, the fact that we have a system that allows for this basically institutional legalized bribery. So Hastings also takes money from private prison companies. Do you think that that might affect his views on criminal justice reform?
Well, of course it does, but not just on criminal reform, but justice reform, but also immigrants. You know, I'm a first-generation American. My parents are Haitian, and we live with the issues that's going on with ICE every single day in these facilities that are taking immigrants and housing us there. So if he's getting a big portion of his money from these facilities, of course he's not going to fight against it. Meanwhile, most of his constituents are people like me who live it every single day, who suffer it, and we can't stand by idly and allow him to continue accepting these funds and coming to us in our community telling us, oh, I'm working as hard as I can. You're really not, and we can't accept that any longer.
So Sheila, you are the CEO of a company that provides home-based continued medical care. Why get into politics?
Well, I actually have a law degree, and when I graduated from law school, I decided to go into healthcare because it was an exciting time. I went to law school a little bit later because I had a family already, and it was during the time of the Affordable Health Care Act, and I just fell in love with it, looking it up and looking at the regulations. So I thought this was a great opportunity for me to go in and merge two things, which is healthcare and regulations, and be at the forefront. And I fell in love with it, and I've been doing that ever since. And I also have been lobbying on initiatives that actually touch my community, such as Medicaid, Medicare, ensuring that it's not just that we're all getting Medicaid, but access, which is a big issue that people don't really understand. That, you know, yeah, they opened up the Medicaid door slightly, but we still are denied access. We still don't know what we're entitled to. We still don't have the services in our community, especially when it comes to mental health, especially when it comes to our elderly really getting the things they need. And for years, I've been on the Hill advocating for, you know, the recipients, and I don't see any movement. If anything, what I'm seeing is that they don't really have understanding of what efficiency really is. I'm a big proponent for Medicaid for all, but we can never get there if we have people who are idly taking on bills from other organizations that have an interest of closing that window to let everybody get Medicaid. So I'm very passionate about that because I know at the end of the day, the people who are denied access are working class families. I'm a mother of 2 children. I'm a wife, and I see it every day how hard it is. My daughter actually has a learning disability, so I can tell you from firsthand experience how hard it is to actually get the services that are needed. I had to spend so much money out of pocket when in other areas it's easy for them to get it. And I can't go forward in this country, in my America, knowing that there are a lot of women who are suffering the same issues I'm having. If you look at the statistics, there's a growing number of children who are born with autism, learning disabilities. Why is no one talking about that? Why is no one talking about how are we going to help this generation of children? Instead, they're staying silent, saying that we can never have Medicaid for all. This is absolutely baloney. It's not realistic. If we want to have Medicaid for all, we have to be efficient with our resources. We have to be using telemedicine and our resources fully. Once we start using it fully, what you're going to start seeing is that everybody has a means of getting access. We also need to focus on preventative medicine. Preventative medicine is imperative, especially when it comes to nutrition. A lot of diseases that we're seeing right now, like diabetes, we're starting to see that it's actually reversible. So if we can focus on reversing diabetes, preventing certain diseases, then we'll see that these forecasts that they have of us not being able to afford Medicaid is just not true. It's a real issue is, do you want to expand Medicaid? Do you want to have Medicaid for all? It's not if we can do it. And that's an excuse they hide behind. And I'm ready to pull the veil off of it. We can't stand by and allow this to happen any longer. If we're looking also at Medicaid and Medicare and preventative, we must look at the environment. We're seeing that nutrition is imperative to preventing diseases. And if we're looking at natural sources, we have to look to our environment. We have to look to the earth that we're living in, and even the fishes, and even just everything. The algae that we have going on now with the red tide. This is the thing that touches our lives every single day, and that's why the environment, big sugar, is such a big issue in Florida, because the big sugar has been able to not be regulated and have these practices that are hurting the earth, and now we're feeling it. We have fish coming ashore. We have manatees. We have everything coming ashore, and this is the life that we're living in South Florida. It makes me wonder. Go ahead.
So Sheila, you mentioned earlier that you were passionate. You didn't need to. I think that comes across pretty clearly. And I've decided that Big Sugar would be a good name for a rapper. But anyway, but I am now. You got me randomly curious about what lit the fire. So do you remember the first thing that you did in any political sphere that and why you were motivated to do it and what you got out of it?
Well, like I said, I go and I lobby. Like, I just have a love for the law, and so I'll go and I lobby and I read I read the bills and I see what they're putting in there. And one of the first things that I noticed was one of his infrastructure bills. It was the funding that he was referring to for the infrastructure bill was based on a funding that doesn't exist any longer. And I said, oh my God, this is exactly why you haven't been able to sponsor a bill since 2009. Since 2009, my district, which encompasses Broward County and Palm Beach, our congressman has not been able to solely sponsor a bill to meet our needs and pass. And it's because of this. I don't know what you call this, but laziness, you expect to be there. But how are you putting up bills with that kind of funding that doesn't exist? These are things that I can no longer let go forward. And so I think when I started seeing the truth about it, because, we work so hard, especially being a woman in South Florida, a mother, going to school, going to law school. I did my MBA. We work so hard to serve our community. And when I get to Congress and I'm talking and I'm like, you don't know this? It upsets me.
So Sheila, 98% of Congress people don't read the bills. You are not in Congress and you read the bill anyway.
Well,
wow. Okay, I just want to send you to Congress so you'll be among like the 3 people in Congress who actually reads the bills.
But we have to demand the standard, and that's what people don't realize. I'm sick of tired of women like me in my community always being overeducated, underpaid, and overqualified. When I first started running, he told me I should run for school board. And I said, really? I'm reading your bills, and I can tell you what's wrong with your bills, but I should run for school board. This is where we talk about his view of women. Now that I'm running, he's saying that he's a proponent for women. And I said, is that true? If we look at your record, if we look at the statements that you made against women, especially how much money was paid out for your sexual harassment suit, how could you sit there and say you're for women and then tell me I should run for school board? And even when the Sun Sentinel addressed that question and asked him, he said, well, maybe he's just old-fashioned. Absolutely not. I'm not tolerating that. You're just old-fashioned. So that's why you're going to try and limit me and continue to perpetuate a system where women constantly have to be overeducated, constantly have to be overqualified just to get a job to pay and take care of our families? Absolutely not. I'm not doing it. And because of that, I'm running.
So here's who's not going to be kept down. Sheila. Okay, so by the way, just for the folks at home, if you didn't know, Hastings faced accusations of sexual harassment, which were settled in 2014 for $220,000. And in this particular race in Florida's 20th, there is no Republican running. And so it's just Sheila or Hastings. So that's the choice, and it's in the primary. I do want to ask you one more quick question because we're running short on time, but I want to make sure everybody's got the website too, SheilaForCongress.com. And she is not taking corporate funding, so volunteering and donating makes an even bigger difference. SheilaForCongress.com, and you see the links for volunteering and donating as well. So the last question is about economic mobility. You've got that as one of your priorities. Your mom was apparently a maid at Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and how do you propose, if you're in Congress, you can actually make economic mobility more possible for the average American?
Well, there's two things that really stop us from being mobile. The debt that every generation is entangled in. And we have to actually close those loopholes when it comes to these financial institutions that create these schemes. And every time I look at these bills, I feel like they're kind of like aliens. They keep morphing themselves into something else so they can't be regulated. We have to stop that. But we also have to create cooperative agreements between the different types of environments in the district and all over the country. And what I'm talking about is actually having a cooperative agreement with farmers where they're bringing fresh food into the inner city and having that exchange. And in return, in our cities, we have a lot of people who have medical training that we can bring into the rural areas because they're deficient there. But then we can also have a cooperative agreement where we have the baby boomers who want to retire but don't have that money. We can reincorporate them into the working class as being mentors for the millennials. And for that, I would want to give a grant where they can now teach professionalism. They can teach things on being a business owner, the tenacity it takes, and the see-through, the things that the millennials are kind of being distanced from, being that we have more technology going. You have to kind of see that. If you have someone there who told you, look, I did it. I actually did this, I grew it, and this is how you can do it. Then we'll see that our population of workers will be actually fuller and richer, and then we can actually thrive.
Yep. All right, Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick.
Yes.
I got one note for Big Sugar. Watch out. Here comes Sheila.
Thank you.
All right, SheilaForCongress.com is the website. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.